I'm Alex. I found one of the biggest problems was how to teach the middle when I had most of my students at the lower end of being able to learn productively and productive learners, right? And I found over COVID, students doubled down on their learning. They said, great, I've got all this time, I can learn by myself, I'm not constricted by school. And then you got some kids that just, gamed or went on social media the whole time. So I found it really hard to walk into teaching. So my inquiry was, how do I teach to all learners? So one of the core challenges I had was getting them to evidence their learning, because using a jigsaw or a bandsaw, they knew instinctively why they would use a jigsaw. It's easier to make tighter corners when making a skateboard, right? And using a bandsaw, it's easier to get more accurate cuts. But like, say, a builder, they'll just go and use the tool that's best required. They don't need to justify why, right? And so really giving those prompting questions to the whole class all at once was really hard, right? And so I had to start off by giving those prompting questions and embedding it into my workbooks. That was the main challenge, right? But first I had to decipher this NCEA cryptic marking criteria, right? And so I color-coded it, and then I found at level 3 there was a lot of crossover, and what the hell does synthesis mean, right? And so by doing this, I could see there's different weighting in different areas, and so they had the whole taxonomy thing where you'd have describe, explain, discuss, and then they knew where to put that emphasis in, right? And then I wanted to really distill it down into just one word criteria, right? And everyone can grasp onto, I'll just talk about materials and that is worth achieved around. I can describe different materials, right? And then I like big ideas. So I went into design thinking the double diamond, or the kids call it double Ds, but I don't know. Anyway, so in the first part is divergent thinking, right? You'll know what that is. It's just, that's me. I'm a big ideas person. I like to come up with all these different ideas, but my girlfriend, she's very like, how about we just stick to one thing at a time, and how about not go to Australia and get to know each other? so learning this, very consciously selecting why we want to use these materials, why we want to use a bandsaw over a jigsaw, why does this material suit a longboard because it's more flexible, or do you need it to be waterproof? Having those prompting questions was key, right? But also telling the narrative of their journey. So you'd have divergent thinking and then convergent, and then they would end up making a prototype here, right? And so they get to know all the tools and materials and consciously select them, and then they would get feedback on it, right? And they would talk to their end users, their experts, and then they would do strength tests, that sort of thing, and then get the feedback through testing. And then they would make modifications, so that's also making decisions, right? And then you can see the merit and excellence is looping back and synthesizing those ideas. So this is an example of how I captured those different criteria and snapshots on their thinking, right? So you've got little prompts down there for insert an image here. I don't know, 4 is enough. And then they could insert evidence of getting emails from their parents or their end users. And then in my speaker notes, I like to hide a load of information, a load of prompting questions, right? And then they could just pick from that and then populate their slides, right? So not all questions suited them, but that was very helpful. And then also just peppering in keywords was helpful also. And then also down the bottom, I just told them how to make it, right? I found a distinction between separating, hey, just one slide today, this week, that's enough. And then giving them choices and separating those two. Here's another example of his end user and the expert in the room. And I applied it for impact, right? So you've got just one word examples of quality, product, and process. How about just process, right? Like, show me your process of learning. And that might just be a slide, and you can populate it however you like. Ideas. What are the student ideas? Come up with existing ideas. Expand on them. Expert. Who are you going to go talk to out in the community? And end users. Who's it for? Right? So just really simplifying it. I found out that Brave New Words was a really good book. I don't know if you know, but I'm big into AI. And I found in that book, he gives an example of The Great Gatsby, right? So rather than an AI just making an essay about The Great Gatsby, you could talk to Mr. Gatsby. You could sit on the shore with them and ask Mr. Gatsby, why do you look at that green light in the distance? Oh, good sport. I like to look at that light because gives me a reminder of the longing of the woman I love. Reflections and lessons. So the differentiation, I found in a huge differentiation in my class. You don't have to choose, you can do it to all. So I found out the students came into my class, they were like lemmings. Right? So they come in, and then I had these students that just wanted to learn. I could just give them this workbook, and then they could get underway, and they had all the prompting questions, and they could just get onto the next thing. And those first lemmings digging down, they could sort of pave the way for the next lemming coming through and say, oh, I sort of see what you're doing here, and then the flow-on effect. And then I got the lemmings right at the end that decided to start at the last minute. And but they still sort of made it to the end, even though they started this one assignment, this 6-credit assignment. They might have only finished term 2, but they still had that journey of completion. So how I would apply this in the future for myself, I'd like to make a chatbot for each assignment, but it will not give them the answer. It will make them answer certain questions and go through that learning process Socratically. And I think I can give you some examples of how it might look for impact, existing outcomes. Just very easy to achievable in a week. And then this is an example of another student's work. I've got the 6 rules of the workshop, Mr. Bevin's 7 rules of the workshop. Get into that later, but here are some other examples of student work. Divergent thinking, and then you've got convergent thinking where they pick one and then they improve on. How's that for time?
Cool.
Thank you. Any questions?
Lemmings because you felt. You know, lemmings run off. I feel like there's you can, but
I do know what you're saying, but I chose lemmings because they needed this,
yes.
and I had different rooms too, so that was another thing.
Yeah.
So they actually graduated with, I guess. All right.
I forgot what that game was initially. I played that when I was a lot younger, but you are directing them, say in stations, in a group towards something because they've got this mindless direction, right, which can be very bad, or they can pan it quite well if you're directing them to the right
but
station.
You'd have that one guy in their group is like, see, I know what you're talking about. They'll just follow me and just do the thing, and then they would make the thing, and then the rest of them would get FOMO on making it and see their cool product. Yeah. So that's one good thing about being in the workshop is you're making something, and there's something primal about having something tangible to take home with you. So
it's real visible.
It's real visible learning, and if parents expect a quality outcome, well, what have you been doing all year?
Yeah.
Still has one of my creations from hard
Yeah.
materials.
What was it?
It's one of those. It's got a little wand that you have to guide over the wire.
The operation, yeah.
My parents framed